Hey guys, tonight we journey through the quiet lamplit streets of Meiji-Era Tokyo, where your footsteps echo off stone paths still slick with morning dew. You are a lamplighter, a job both ordinary and strangely sacred. Before anyone else in the city wakes, you're already awake, rising from a futon that still clings to your body warmth. The paper walls let in a pale, diffused glow. It's the hour of invisible people. Outside, the air is crisp. You open the shoji door and step into it barefoot for a moment, just to feel the damp wood of the Ingawa beneath you. It's your daily test. Will today be bone cold or soul gentle? Today, it's gentle. Your joints don't creak quite as much. The gas. Lights that burned all night are flickering low now, like sleepy eyes barely open. Some are already extinguished by wind or stray cats. Others fight to stay lit against the dawn. They will need you soon. You trudge to the kitchen, your version of a kitchen anyway, and light the little hibachi stove. The rice pot is already filled with a mix of barley and leftover grains from yesterday. You add water from the ceramic jug and listen to it hiss as it begins to warm. While it simmers, you sit on your heels and wipe down the family's kamidana altar. It's not grand, just a plank and a few offerings, but you nod to it, mouthing a thanks for the light under your breath. You clean the tatami with a bundle of straw, one square at a time. You know every scuff and indentation in these mats. There's a new scratch near the doorway, probably from when you dropped your snuffer pole last night. You'll sand it later. A rooster crows somewhere far off, probably the one by the old sake shop, where you sometimes trade lamp oil for leftover daikon pickles. You stretch slowly, testing your knees. They pass today's test. You hum, something a tune your father used to whistle when scrubbing his hands with rice bran. The rice is ready. You scoop it into a chipped bowl and add a splash of soy, a sliver of pickled plum, and exactly 3 sesame seeds. No more, no less. Why superstition? But yours. As you eat, you stare at the small wooden box by the door. Inside it, your tools. The instruments of your quiet trade. You resist the urge to check it. You always check it. But not yet. Instead, you rise, fold your bedding, and pack a spare cloth in your sleeve. Today is Thursday, which means the 3rd district is yours. More lights, but fewer stairs. A fair trade. You finally open the box. Inside the snuffer pole, the wick trimmer, the lint-free cloth for cleaning lamp glass, and a handful of flint matches bound in twine. One is cracked. You replace it without thinking. You run your finger along the edge of the pole, smooth, slightly warped by years of sweat and use. It's an extension of your arm now. You've lit over 30,000 lamps, give or take. No one's counting, except maybe you. You sling the box across your back, adjust the cord around your chest, and glance once more at the altar. No flame there, only memory. You nod again. You step out into the street. It's empty except for a single paper kite tangled in a telephone wire, left over from a festival weeks ago. You think about getting it down. Maybe later. And so begins another day. You return inside for just a moment. Not because you forgot something, but because you always do this. One final loop. One last breath of familiarity before you trade it for soot and silence. The floor creaks beneath your heel as you pass over the same tatami you just cleaned. You grab the small towel hanging beside the door and wrap it loosely around your neck. It's part sweat rag, part superstition. Your wife once said it kept away spirits that lingered on lampposts. You don't believe her, but you still wear it. Back in the street, you move through the neighborhood like a shadow. It's barely light enough to see, but your feet know the way. Every alley, every twist of stone, every loose tile on the road that shifts just a little when you step on it. You stop at the edge of the district and kneel beside a rain barrel to wash your hands. The water is frigid and smells faintly of last night's storm. You scrub thoroughly fingernails' wrists between each finger. A lamplighter's hands are part tool, part symbol. Clean hands mean respect. Then the ritual begins sandals. Straw sandals are not designed for luxury. They fray, scratch, and rarely last more than a few weeks. But today's pair is still sturdy. You tighten the cords around your big toes and heel. They squeak faintly with each step until the fibers settle in. Your kit rattles as you walk, just a little percussion to your solitary morning soundtrack. Occasionally, a shutter creaks open. Someone peeks. You nod. They nod back. You are not a mystery to them. You are just the man who keeps the dark polite. As you pass the tofu shop, you catch the scent of steaming soy curds. The old man inside is already stirring, his vat eyes, half-lidded hand moving in slow circles. You sometimes trade lamp work for tofu ends. Not today, though. Today, you just wave. Your first lamp is waiting at the intersection near the carpenter's corner. It's a squat one, British design, installed a decade ago during the modernization push. Too short to require climbing, but stubborn in its own right. You approach it like an old friend, cautious, respectful, resigned. You kneel. The glass is smudged, probably from neighborhood kids. You wipe it clean with practiced motions, then trim the wick just slightly. Too long, and the flame flutters. Too short, and it wheezes out like an old man. Balance is everything. You light the lamp. A brief sputter, a hesitation. Then it catches. It's a dull golden flame, not as bright as electricity, but warmer, more forgiving. It casts gentle shadows that flicker like quiet laughter. You stand, stretching your back. One down, dozens to go. You move methodically through the street, lighting, trimming, polishing. Each lamp has its own personality. Some are cooperative. Some are temperamental. One by the noodle shop hisses every time it's lit, as though resenting the intrusion. You finish that block and move to the next weaving between carts and crates left out overnight. You sidestep a stray cat lounging on a rice sack, its eyes watching you with the same judgment you've felt since childhood. By the time you reach the western edge of the ward, the sky has shifted from blue-gray to soft amber. The city is beginning to stir. Children dart out from narrow doorways, chasing marbles and each other. A paper fan flutters from a balcony. Somewhere someone starts playing a bamboo flute, the notes uncertain but sweet. You light another lamp. This one has a cracked pane on the left side. You've reported it twice, but the repairman never comes. So you compensate by angling the wick slightly so the flame leans into the good side. Historians still argue whether Tokyo's gaslighting grid was modeled more after London or Paris. You've read both versions in discarded newspapers. Your opinion? Neither. Tokyo's lamps belong to Tokyo, just like you do. The wind shifts. You catch a whiff of something metallic, probably from the construction site near the river. They're building a new bridge. More light poles, they say. Fewer workers. You don't dwell on it. You move on. The next street is your favorite. Not because of the lamps, those are all fussy and mounted too high, but because of the sound. The way footsteps echo here, the way the flame hums in this alley. It feels older, like it remembers Edo, even if everyone else has forgotten. You light the last lamp on the block, then pause. You pull the cloth from your neck and wipe your brow. It's already damp. You squint up at the rooftops, watching birds skitter across tiles. It's going to be a long day. You follow the lane that curves like a brushstroke around a dry well, your footsteps light now that the sandals have settled into their rhythm. A few birds rustle awake above you, and behind closed shutters, you hear the murmur of morning prayers. Today is a good day for the trade cool with a breeze that barely ruffles your sleeve. Your kit rests against your back like a sleeping cat, its wooden shell clicking faintly with each step. The street opens up into a tiny square, more like a bump in the road, where merchants gather before the real bustle begins. You nod to the tofu seller again, who now has customers. He winks. His daughter offers you a plum candy. You decline politely, but take the gesture with you. Your next lamp is mounted on an iron pole, embedded into a crooked stone base. You remember when a carriage backed into it last summer? It still leans slightly to the left, as if the lamp itself is tired. You climb the base using a ladder you borrow from the tea merchant. He doesn't mind. The ladder is older than both of you, and the two of you often joke that it should get its own pension. Up top, the city changes. From a lamplighter's perch, roofs stretch like a field of sleeping animals. Clay tiles, rusted metal, even a patchwork of tarps on one rooftop where a family lives with too many dreams and not enough permits. You trim the wick and light the flame. It coughs once rude, really, but then stabilizes. You adjust the glass. Your reflection stares back at you for a brief second, soot-streaked, slightly sweaty, not unhandsome. You descend, slowly. No need to rush. You've got hours to go, and the lamp will still be there tomorrow. Unless lightning strikes it. Again. Back on the ground, you walk past a small shrine nestled in a corner barely noticed by the modern world. You pause. It's your habit. You place one hand briefly on the stone fox statue at its base, just in case. You've never believed fully in gods, but you also never tempt them. Around the next bend is a tailor's shop. The owner waves you in. He's mending your wife's sleeve, something about a burn mark from the kettle. While you wait, he tells you about a customer who tried to pay with Belgian chocolate. You laugh politely, even though you're unsure what Belgium is. He hands over the cloth neatly folded. You slide it into your bag next to the trimmer. The balance of tools and textiles feels oddly comforting. A boy runs past you laughing. He shouts something about a kite in a tree. You remember being that age. Briefly, the urge to follow him flits across your chest like a bird. But you have lamps to tend, and kites always come down eventually. You reach the edge of the market district. A few stalls are already open, though the vendors still look half asleep. One is pouring tea into a cracked cup, staring into the steam like it holds secrets. You light 2 more lamps, one of which has a bird's nest wedged near the base. You leave it alone. Life is life, even when it inconveniences flame. Down another alley, you pass a man selling fireworks illegal this time of year, but ignored. He offers you a sparkler. You raise an eyebrow. He chuckles. You take it. You won't light it, but you'll carry it until it bends or breaks. A token of mischief. A reminder you're still human. Historians still debate whether Meiji Tokyo ever had an official lamplighter guild. Some claim it was organized. Others argue it was just a bunch of men with ladders. You suspect the truth lies somewhere in between, like most things in life. You reach the last lamp before the footbridge. It's always temperamental. You adjust the wick fiddle with the valve, mutter a curse under your breath, and eventually it glows. You pause on the bridge. Below, a shallow canal moves sluggishly like a dragon, too old to bother with fire. Paper scraps float on its surface, wrappers' dreams, and at least one half-sunk sandal. You lean on the railing, letting your bag rest for a moment. Your shoulders ache, not painfully, just familiarly. A breeze nudges your cheek, and the flame from the last lamp flickers in your peripheral vision. You move on. The box on your back clunks once as you shift your weight and step off the bridge. You adjust the strap, pulling it tighter across your chest. The wood rubs against your spine, but you don't mind. It's been with you longer than most of your friends. This box is more than just storage. It's your silent partner, your entire trade, distilled into timber and hinges. You know every notch in it, every stain, every tiny squeal the hinge makes when the morning is especially damp. You kneel beneath a covered gate to check your tools once more. Not because they've gone missing. Tools never disappear when they're loved, but because there's a rhythm to it. The way your hand fits around the snuffer pole, the way the wick trimmer clicks softly like a cricket when you squeeze it. These rituals matter. There's also a new addition today, a borrowed brass oil syringe given to you by the inspector last week. He said it might improve efficiency. You didn't ask for it, but now it's here nestled beside your cloth and trimming blade. You're still unsure whether to trust it. The next few lamps are all familiar. You've lit them so many times you could do it blindfolded. Sometimes you fantasize about trying just once for the drama of it. You pass the bathhouse. Steam curls lazily from the vents in the roof. The woman who runs it, who you've never seen outside her slippers, waves her pipe at you. You wave back. She's lived here longer than the lamps, possibly longer than the trees. Your path takes you down a row of posts installed during the Emperor's early modernization drive. The bases are carved with little crests, now worn smooth. You like these ones. They remind you that even progress wants to look pretty. One of them is always crooked. You brace your ladder and climb carefully. As you work, you think about what's inside the box. It's not just tools. It's every lesson you ever learned from your mentor, like how to trim a wick by sound if the snip echoes it's too dry, or how to breathe out when lighting not in just in case the flame jumps. And the stories. Endless stories. Of nights when the lamps blew out all at once, or when someone tied a string of paper cranes to a pole just to confuse the inspector. Historians love to debate whether lamplighters ever carried swords. The idea of a warrior lighter has charm, but it's fantasy. You've never even held one. But you did once fend off a raccoon with your trimming hook, and in that moment you felt rather heroic. You descend and move to the next. Each post is like a cousin, slightly different, slightly familiar, and liable to complain when touched the wrong way. You kneel at the fifth post and unwrap a fresh cloth to polish the glass. This one is cloudy with soot. You rub in circles, humming tunelessly. When it clears, your reflection stares back older than you remember. You light it, adjust the valve, and move on. A boy calls from a window above, asking if the flames can hear secrets. You say yes, but only boring ones. He laughs and disappears. That laugh echoes down the alley long after he's gone. You pause near a garden overgrown and wild. Someone's been lighting incense among the weeds. You smell sandalwood and rust. Maybe a shrine used to be here, or maybe someone's just homesick. The box on your back shifts again as you step over a broken paving stone. You catch yourself barely. You laugh. Your knee does not. You reach for a drink of water from your gourd. It's warm, but still comforting. You wipe your lips with your sleeve and glance at the sky. It's higher now, brighter. The kind of brightness that makes the lamps fade just a bit. But not yet. Not yet. You touch the latch of your box again. There's something reassuring about the way it clicks. Like punctuation. You still haven't used the syringe. Maybe next post. You make your way into the old merchant quarter, where the gas lamps stand like bony sentinels between leaning wooden shops. The streets here are narrower, as though designed by someone who liked bumping elbows. Your shoulders almost brush the walls. You pause before the first lamp, its base cracked rust trailing down like tears. You pat it once, a small apology, and begin your ascent. This pole is a beast. Tall iron, a holdover from when foreign engineers tried to replicate London's system in a city that preferred wood and quiet. You never liked these models. They hum too loud in the cold, and they always smell like old coins. At the top, the wind greets you like an impatient cat, brisk, insistent. You plant your feet carefully and open the lamp. Inside a wick too short, a crust of blackened oil, and the vague feeling that something just scuttled away. You sigh. This is where you work best. Up high, alone, with a flame and the wind. You trim the wick slowly, thinking of how many people below don't notice these lights until they're gone. That's your power. You're part of the scenery, unseen until needed, missed when absent. Like oxygen, or good rice. You strike the match and coax the flame into life. It resists at first, most do, but then surrenders with a soft whoomph. The glass fogs briefly, then clears. From this perch, the street unfolds below like a painting. A woman pours water into a bucket. A child draws kanji with his finger in the dirt. A merchant counts coins by lantern-light lips moving silently. You descend slowly. Your knees dislike these poles. They file daily complaints. You pretend not to hear them. You head to the next lamp. It's one of your favorites, tall, straight, surprisingly well-behaved. You call it Bones, partly because it looks skeletal, partly because you once nicked your shin on its latch and limped for a week. You clean its glass with the hem of your sleeve. Not proper technique, but the cloth was packed too deep in the box and your fingers are impatient. It lights with a single strike. Show off. You begin to fall into rhythm lamp, clean. Trim light. Step back. Nod. Each action folds into the next. It's not work. It's choreography. Between lamps, you think of strange things. The taste of sesame candy. Whether lamps dream when unlit. If cats judge your technique. If your wife has washed your spare sandals yet. You arrive at a short post beside the tofu dumpling stall. The vendor offers you a dumpling no charge. You refuse, twice take it the third time, and immediately burn your tongue. He laughs. You don't. Not yet. Later, maybe. You light his lamp with your tongue still sizzling, and wonder if it's the hottest thing you'll experience today. Historians still argue whether Tokyo's lamplighters used standard-issue oil, or secretly diluted it with vegetable broth to save money. You don't know. You just light. And some days the oil smells suspiciously of cabbage. You pass a row of posts along a wall painted with fading advertisements. One promises better digestion. Another claims to improve love lives. You consider the second, but only because the model is smiling in a way that feels suspiciously like someone who's never climbed a lamp in the rain. You adjust the flame, step back, glance at the street. Shadows shrink away as light trickles down cobbles. The city is fully awake now, stretching its limbs and shaking off its dreams. A street dog sniffs your ladder, finds it uninteresting, and moves on. You pause and feel the wind shift. Somewhere far off, a temple bell chimes deep and slow like a monk breathing in reverse. You light one last lamp before turning toward the next street. It flickers, once weak, apologetic, but holds. You whisper, "Good enough," and move on. The scent of pickled plums hits you before the next corner. It wraps around you like an old blanket, sour, warm, oddly comforting. You know who's waiting there before you even see her. The Okami-san of the tea house stands beside a half-polished post apron, dusted with flower sleeves rolled to the elbows. Her hair is pinned up with a lacquered comb the color of soy sauce. She's holding a small porcelain dish. You sigh before she says anything. "Try this one," she says. Voice clipped, but not unkind. Less salt. More You take it. The plum is dark red, wrinkled, and suspiciously glossy. You bite. It's sharper than usual, more vinegar, less fruit, but still wakes your tongue like a slap in a hot spring. She watches your face. You nod. Not approval, just acknowledgement. It's enough. "I'll bring more next week," she says, turning back inside, before you can object. You wouldn't anyway. She's made you eat worse. You light her lamp, a squat model, that hangs just outside the doorway, and polish its brass plaque until your reflection looks mildly satisfied. Down the street, you greet a man boiling soy sauce over a brick stove. He waves but says nothing. You've known each other 10 years and haven't exchanged a full sentence. You like it that way. You move on. Your next stop is an alley that winds behind the old post office. The lamps here are shy, tucked into corners barely taller than a man. Their light is more suggestion than illumination. You trim one and nearly sneeze from the dust. Someone has drawn a mustache on the lamp glass with charcoal. You wipe it off, but only after considering leaving it. For whimsy. At the far end of the alley, 2 children crouch near a firefly jar. You pretend not to notice them. They pretend not to giggle when you almost drop your trimming hook. You take a shortcut through the bamboo grove behind the fishmonger's shop. The stalks sway faintly, whispering secrets you're not meant to hear. One of the poles here leans dramatically. You suspect it wants to be a tree. You adjust its valve, light the flame, and step back just in time to avoid a splash from a misfired fish bucket. You raise an eyebrow. The apprentice bows so low you worry for his spine. Historians still puzzle over whether lamplighters had official uniforms during the Meiji-Era. Some documents show jackets with insignias. Others suggest workers just wore whatever kept the soot out. You wear the same robe you always have patched in places with old futon scraps. No badge, no rank, just stitches. A merchant flags you down to report a flickering post near his storefront. You follow him to the corner where the lamp in question hums unevenly. You open it and find a moth, big, fluffy, and somehow indignant, trapped inside. You free it. It lands on your sleeve, sits for a moment, then flutters away without thanks. You fix the wick relight and nod to the merchant. He tries to offer you coins. You refuse. He insists. You refuse harder. He finally gives up and places 2 sweet beans wrapped in paper on your toolbox. You will eat them later and pretend you found them on the road. As you move through the neighborhood, more people are out now. A woman sells hair combs from a mat. A man juggles lacquer bowls with mild success. A monk chants from somewhere nearby, low, rhythmic, like a lantern's breath. One of the poles has been decorated with strips of paper wishes written in tiny script. You read one, "May I grow tall." It's taped to the shortest pole in the ward. You chuckle softly and light the lamp extra carefully, as if to encourage the wish. You head toward the bridge where the river turns your box lighter now as you've used most of today's cloth. The breeze returns stronger this time, tugging at your sleeves. You pass by the tea house again. The okami-san is gone, but a new dish sits on the step, another plum even more shriveled than the last. You shake your head. You're not hungry. You take it anyway. The stone underfoot shifts slightly as you step into a lane most people have forgotten. It curves behind the back wall of an old noodle shop and emerges between 2 shuttered storefronts that haven't seen customers in years. Here, the lamps burn on older bones relics of a time when Tokyo still answered to Edo. The gas fittings here are wrong by modern standards, too narrow, made for British nozzles that rusted in months and leaked when overused. You've learned how to coax them gently, like massaging a stubborn cat into a bath. You crouch beside the first lamp. Its valve is stuck. It always is. You learned long ago not to force it. Instead, you hum the old worker's tune your mentor taught you, something slow and crooked, and somehow the metal loosens. It's not science. It's respect. This lamp wears age like lacquer. The glass is bubbled from heat, and the post leans like a drunk in a windstorm. But it burns with dignity. You light it, and it flares up as if to say, "Still here." As you stand, you notice the faintest carving on the base letters in English, mostly worn away, Manchester 1872. You trace them with your thumb. Imagine the hands that made it so far away. Never knowing their lamp would end up halfway across the world, lit by a man who chews umeboshi and talks to fox statues. You walk the path slowly. Each post here tells a different story. One has nail holes where flyers used to hang. Another is scarred from when a festival fire got out of hand, just one spark and a week of cleanup. You helped. Your knees remember. The back wall of the alley is covered in ivy, and one vine has crept up a post, curling lovingly around the gas line. You don't remove it. You light around it. The green deserves to stay. You pass a shuttered barber shop. Inside you glimpse the mirror still intact, catching your reflection for just a blink. You look like a ghost passing through a place that's forgotten how to echo. At the alley's end is a lamp that no longer lights. The glass is cracked, the valve jammed, the post bent at a tragic angle. You kneel before it touched the base, and for a moment you consider trying again. You don't. Some things are meant to fade. You leave a single match on the base, just in case it changes its mind someday. Historians still argue whether these alleys were part of the official lighting grid. Some maps include them, some omit them entirely. One theory says this route was lit for couriers during late-night runs between districts. Another claims it was maintained for the benefit of a single blind poet who lived nearby and loved the sound of flame. You prefer that one. Your next stop is near a laundry shop where steam rises in columns like polite ghosts. A woman hangs wet cloth with swift fingers. You nod. She nods. The universal language of morning chores. You light her post. It takes the flame reluctantly, as though questioning your credentials. You persist, and eventually it settles into its glow. As you work, you hear laughter from a second-story window. A man is telling a joke you can't hear, but the punchline makes the entire room burst. You smile anyway. Laughter echoes even when the words don't carry. You duck beneath a hanging laundry line and move toward the final post in this hidden zone. It's lodged at a strange angle next to a crumbling wall held up by prayer and ivy. You brace yourself, climb the stone base, and light the wick with one clean strike. The flame responds instantly, eager even. You exhale slowly. Then you step out of the forgotten path back into the noise of the modern lanes. The city's rhythm resumes faster now. Wheels on stones, bells on carts, voices rising like birds at feeding time. But behind you in the alley, the lamps still burn, like memories no one asked for, but no one dares put out. Your path leads to a narrower stretch of homes, quieter now, save for the caw of a crow perched above a tiled roof. It's just past mid-morning, and the city has grown bold in its pace. But here, where the houses lean close like gossiping elders, time still drips slowly. You pause outside a modest house with a lacquered sign that reads simply, "Lamps and repairs." Faded ink, bent nail, but the doorframe stands solid like memory. This was your mentor's home. You stand a moment longer than necessary, your box weighing heavier than it should. Inside the house is likely unchanged wood, creaking in the same places, smell of oil soaked into the walls. Tools still lined up as if he'd be back by lunchtime. He won't be. You remember your first week under his watch. You showed up early every day, unsure whether to bow or salute or simply stay out of the way. He never told you what to do. He just handed you a trimming hook and said, "Don't drop it. It bites." You dropped it, of course. Twice. He laughed. Then he made you clean every soot-marked lamp in the 5th Ward. Your fingers stung for days, but your grip never faltered after that. You walk past the gate and keep going. You've made your peace with that chapter mostly, though sometimes in the middle of lighting a particularly stubborn post, you still hear his gravel voice muttering critiques you never asked for. The next lamp sits outside an old bookshop, and it's the same one he made you light during your first rainstorm. You remember slipping on the stones, swearing under your breath, and how he watched silently, offering no help until you finally got the wick to catch. Then he handed you a rice ball, still warm, and said, "Don't light angry. It burns wrong." Historians write essays about the development of urban lighting, but they never mention the part where someone teaches you how to make a flame behave with patience and leftover rice. You light the bookshop lamp with ease now. It feels like a personal triumph every time. Farther down the lane is a post he once accidentally lit during a funeral procession. The mourners assumed it was a blessing. He pretended it was intentional and got invited to dinner. You teased him for weeks. He claimed he meant it. You never believed him. One of your fondest memories is of a summer night when a blackout hit the northern wards. The city panicked, but you two lit every street lamp by hand, barefoot, laughing like fools through smoke and confusion. He said it was the closest he'd ever come to flying. He didn't leave much behind. No children, no savings, no medals. Just this job, this rhythm, this endless dance with shadows and fire. You climb the next post slowly, knees arguing with each rung. As you reach the top, the breeze carries the smell of bean paste and tobacco. You wonder what he'd say now. Probably something rude and wise. The flame catches. A clean burn. You descend, press your palm to the post's base, and murmur, "Still doing it." A passing cart clatters by, pulling you back to the moment. You reach for your water sip slowly and walk on. At the next corner, a boy asks if he can help light a lamp. He's small, barefoot, eyes bright. You pause. You hand him your cloth and point to a spot of soot on the glass. He scrubs at it with the seriousness of a monk cleaning temple steps. You nod. He beams. You light the flame and he claps, as if you've summoned lightning. His mother calls, and he runs off, still waving. You don't say it aloud, but it echoes in your head. Maybe someday. You reach a row of lamps along a park where elderly men play shogi in silence, broken only by coughs and mutters. One man glances up and offers you a peach slice. You take it without question. It's juicy tart and unexpectedly cold. One of the posts has gum stuck to its valve. Kids again. You chip it away with your trimming hook, grumbling like your mentor used to. You light the lamp. The flame dances. The wind shifts, and you swear you hear him laugh. The The sun is nearly overhead now, casting a white sheen over the tile roofs and tamping down the color of the streets like a too-hot iron. The shadows, once playful and long now, huddle close to walls, shrinking like old secrets. You enter a quieter district one fewer people remember. The homes are older here, roof lines warped with age windows, clouded by years of smoke and rain. It's said the spirits linger here longer, refusing to leave, or perhaps forgetting how. Your next lamp waits beside a crumbling wall covered in ivy. As you climb the narrow stone base to reach it, the hair on your arms rises slightly, not from cold, but from something else. The air here carries a heaviness, like a whispered warning. You strike the match. The flame flutters, recoils. You frown and try again, but the wick sputters twice before catching. In the reflection of the glass, you think you see something, a ripple, a figure, something not you, blinking back. It's gone in an instant. Probably soot. Still, you check the glass again, just in case. It's not the first time you've seen something strange in these lamps. Sometimes the flames move in ways they shouldn't, spinning, spiraling, pulsing to rhythms you don't understand. You've told no one. They'd laugh. Or worse, they'd agree. You climb down and glance once more at the post. It stands motionless, indifferent. But you swear it wasn't just wind. A few doors down a small shrine juts from the corner of a house, unusual placement. But you've stopped questioning how these old streets decide what goes where. You bow your head slightly in passing, though you don't stop. Not today. Historians still debate whether Meiji-Era Lamplighters believed in Yurei, the restless dead. Officially, no. But unofficially, most of your colleagues kept a small charm in their toolboxes. Your mentor used to tuck dried ginger under his sash just in case. You reach the next lamp and notice its glass is unusually clear. No soot, no fog. It feels like it's watching you. You clean it anyway, if only to feel the normal friction of cloth on glass. You light the flame. It bursts to life with a hiss, then settles into an eerie stillness. The wick glows too bright, too fast. You adjust the valve. It responds immediately, almost like it anticipated you. You mutter, "Don't be clever," and move on. The alley curves behind an abandoned bathhouse. You remember when it still ran steam, pouring from the rooftop, like a dragon exhaling. Now the boards creak with disuse. One of the posts nearby leans toward the entrance like it's listening for memories. You light it, and the smell of sulfur lingers too long. Past that, a row of houses that never open their shutters. Laundry never hangs here. Footsteps echo too loud. The wind avoids this path. You walk faster. Still, you do your duty, lamp by lamp, cleaning, trimming, lighting. One of them is surrounded by broken paper dolls. Another hums even before you light it. You've begun to wonder if these lamps, like the city, remember more than they reveal. You reach a wider street. The sounds of the world return, clattering wheels, barking dogs, the sizzle of skewers on hot iron. You pause and look back at the alley. The flames still burn steady and bright. Maybe too bright. You don't speak. You just adjust the strap on your box, nod once to the nearest lamp like you're ending a conversation, and step into the noise of normalcy. The next lamp you light is so ordinary, it feels like a blessing. It takes the flame gently, the glass slightly fogged, the wick trimmed just right. You exhale without realizing you were holding your breath. You move faster after that. Not rushing, never rushing, but eager for the comfort of routine. The smell of grilled squid reaches you from a street vendor's stall. You follow it to a small plaza where school children chase each other with sticks pretending to be swords. One accidentally jabs your leg and apologizes in a bow so deep he nearly falls over. You tell him that was the fiercest blow I've taken all week. He grins victorious. You light the plaza's lamps in sequence, each one kinder than the last. The last post of the block stands beside a wishing well long out of use. Someone's left a string of prayer papers fluttering from the rail. One reads, "Please let the light stay on." You don't laugh. You simply light the flame and let it answer. The clouds gather slowly like an audience preparing for a play they've seen before. You notice it first in the quiet, the way the birds stop mid-chirp, the way the wind holds its breath. Then, a single drop lands on your shoulder. You look up. The sky above Tokyo is folding itself into a storm. You pull your towel tighter around your neck and hurry toward the next row of lamps. They're high-mounted, difficult in dry weather, and nearly theatrical in rain. The snuffer pole sticks slightly as you open the box it always does when the air is thick. You climb the first post just as the drizzle begins. The drops hiss on the metal. You squint through water-slicked lashes and strike the match under the shelter of your sleeve. The flame catches, flickers, flares. One down. By the time you reach the next lamp, the drizzle has become a proper curtain. It splashes off rooftops and streams down alleys. Your robe darkens at the hem. The trim cloth becomes little more than a soggy ribbon. You slip once, just a stutter of the heel, but catch yourself with the base of the next post. You nod at it. "Thanks," you murmur, because respect matters, even with things that can't nod back. At the corner of the sumo stable, you find temporary shelter beneath an overhang. The scent of wet straw and sweat hangs heavy. Inside, the trainees stretch and grunt their bodies wide and soft like moving earth. One spots you. A massive young man with a topknot like a war banner. He jogs over barefoot and smiling, holding something in both hands. Ceremonial matches, thicker, slow-burning, marked with red kanji down the shaft. He gestures to your next post. You hand him the hook. He lights it with a reverence that surprises you, standing in the rain like a shrine guardian. The flame blooms. He bows. You bow deeper. He runs back to his stable as the storm builds to a rhythm. You trudge on. The next lamp refuses to light. Water must have seeped into the base. You kneel in the puddle and disassemble the valve with fingers that no longer care about comfort. Eventually, the wick dries enough to catch. The flame holds guttering like a drunk trying to give a speech, but it holds. Historians still question whether these gas lamps had proper drainage, or whether the city just hoped for dry weather. The truth. A little of both. Some poles leak like promises. Others haven't failed in years. You never know until the storm comes. The rain makes everything feel older stone, skin stories. You remember another storm like this years ago when a thunderclap knocked out half your root. You lit the rest by memory soaked to the bone, laughing because it hurt less than crying. Today is gentler, not kind, but gentler. You reach a bench beneath an awning and sit, just for a moment. The box thunks behind you, tired. You take out the beans the merchant gave you earlier and eat one. It's slightly mushy, but sweet enough to forgive. A child walks past with an umbrella shaped like a frog. You want one. You won't get one. But the thought lingers. The next 3 posts are close together. They light with less resistance. You clean the glass as best you can, but rain streaks undo your work before you step away. You decide not to mind. The wind picks up. Lanterns sway on ropes outside the noodle house. Someone inside calls your name, offering warm broth. You gesture later and move on. You won't go back, but it's nice to be asked. The final lamp of the stretch is by a bridge high and delicate. You climb slowly, soaked and heavy. The flame resists you, nearly dies twice, but you speak to it softly, like you would a frightened dog. It flares. You shield it as best you can until it steadies. From that perch, you see the district laid out in lines of golden light, each post burning bravely against the storm. They shimmer through the curtain of rain, reflecting off puddles, casting shadows that dance like theater actors on wet stone. You stay a moment longer than needed. Then you descend, feet squelching, heart oddly full. And the rain continues to fall. The rain lightens to a drizzle, then to mist. You wring out your sleeve, flick droplets from your fingers, and head toward a narrow street where neat lines of modernity begin to interrupt your routine. This part of the district is new, or newer at least. The buildings rise taller, squared off in sharper angles. Some windows glow with electricity. A different kind of light. Whiter, colder. You ignore it. Your lamps still matter. Ahead, a man in a dark uniform waits under a parasol too small for his ambition. His shoes shine despite the rain, and his collar is stiff enough to draw blood. He holds a clipboard, like a judge holds a sentence. The ministry inspector. You don't dislike him, but you don't like him either. He's too clean. His shoes don't squeak. He never smells like oil. He greets you with a nod that could cut glass. Routine inspection, he says, as if your entire job is a hypothesis. You show him your kit. He clicks his tongue at the snuffer pole, frowns at your cloth, and examines the borrowed brass syringe like it's a snake in a teacup. This model, he says, gesturing to the syringe, has been approved for improved wick infusion. You haven't used it. You shrug. I trust my hands. He writes something down. Probably non-compliant. You lead him to the nearest lamp. One you lit just before the storm. It's still burning, slightly crooked, a little shy but steady. You trim it again, unnecessarily, just to show your rhythm. You light it a second time with flair. He notes something, probably theatrical. He follows you for 3 more posts, watching every gesture, every match. Once he points out a hairline crack in a lamp base. You nod. Been there since the earthquake. He looks surprised that you know. You look surprised that he doesn't. He pauses beneath a high post, staring up. Have you considered transitioning to electric? You wipe soot from your hand with a towel that's seen better days. Have you considered eating food with flavor? He doesn't laugh. But he doesn't write that down either. Historians still examine when Tokyo's lighting departments began their shift from gas to electric, whether it was economics or symbolism that sealed the deal. The records say budget cuts. The workers say it was about forgetting. You don't fear electricity. You fear indifference. You light another lamp and move on. The inspector follows scribbling notes, frowning at moss, asking about wick length like it's state policy. Eventually, he closes the clipboard. You maintain them well, he says, like it's a revelation. You bow slightly. I live with them. He doesn't understand, but he accepts it. He offers a tight smile, walks away, shoes clicking in defiance of puddles. You breathe again. Around the next bend is a small shrine someone built for travelers, tucked between vending stalls and pachinko machines. You light the lamp there more slowly than usual, letting the flame grow in its own time. You sit beside the post, afterward letting your muscles unwind. The storm's weight has left the air, but not your joints. Children pass, kicking a soggy ball. One stops and asks, "What happens when they turn off the last lamp?" You pause, then say, "Someone will still remember how to light it." She nods, not understanding but trusting. The next few lamps take little effort. Your hands remember how to move without thinking. You clean with calm motions. Strike matches like old friends. You don't glance back to see if the inspector is watching. He isn't. He's gone. You reach the top of a slope where 3 lamps line a small park. Beneath them, a woman teaches her mother how to use a camera. The mother frowns, squints, and then laughs as the flash goes off in her own face. You light all 3 lamps without them noticing. The last of the day's heat is trapped in the stones. Your robe is almost dry now. Your towel is only mildly damp. You press the cloth into the box and tighten the lid. You've made it through inspection without breaking anything, including your patience. You move on. The streets ahead are louder now, closer to the factory quarter, where steam whistles punctuate the rhythm of daily life. Here, the lamps are less aesthetic and more utilitarian. Shorter posts, sturdier bases, fewer glass flourishes. They're built like fists, not like flowers. You pass through the tall iron gates of the lampworks, a facility both fascinating and mildly terrifying. The foreman waves you in with a grease-stained hand. His apron looks like it's fought a dozen machines and lost to all of them. Inside, the air hums with heat and precision. Sparks fly from welding tables. Workers move like clock gears, each with their task. You're here to check inventory. Well, consult, as they call it. They want a lamplighter's perspective on a new valve design. You nod, even though no one here ever listens. They lead you to a workbench, where 2 engineers, one old one, younger than your toolbox, argue over metal types. Copper conducts smoother, the old one insists. Brass lasts longer, the younger shoots back. They turn to you expecting wisdom. You hold up your palms, blackened and lined. Brass doesn't talk back, you say, but copper sings when it leaks. They stare. One nods. The other writes something down. You inspect the prototype heavier than it should be, with a latch too small for gloved fingers. You offer this note. They argue about redesigns while you quietly grab a rag and polish the edge until your reflection smirks back. Historians still write about the industrial innovations of the Meiji period, trains, telegrams, textile mills. But few mention the endless tinkering over lamp valves, the way materials mattered, the way small tweaks changed entire city blocks. You tour the shelves, hooks, glass panes, tubes of oil thick as syrup. One box contains nothing but failed parts. You pick up a wick trimmer bent at the hinge and recognize it. It broke in your hands 2 years ago. They kept it. You don't know whether to be flattered or alarmed. You spend the next half hour offering feedback. They write half of it down and pretend to understand the rest. That's fine. You're used to being ignored until something breaks. Before you leave, the foreman hands you a new trimmer lighter and balanced better. Try this, he says. Tell me if it feels like lying. You pack it carefully, but keep the old one. Trust is earned. Tools included. Back outside, the late afternoon light slants across the rooftops like spilled tea. You continue down the factory road, lamps spaced wider, here fewer pedestrians. The silence is metallic, echoing off sheet walls and tin roofs. You reach a post beside a shipping dock. The lamp base is covered in graffiti, chalk drawings, slogans, the occasional kanji for banana repeated with aggressive enthusiasm. You polish a clear space and light the lamp with care. The flame seems amused. The next post is fused to a rail line. Every time a cart passes, the whole thing vibrates. You time your lighting between passes, matching your strike to the tremble of iron beneath your feet. When it flares, you grin like you've won a bet. A worker stops you near the tool shed. You ever get tired of fire? He asks. You consider it. Only when it forgets how to listen. He laughs, though he doesn't quite get it. Your route leads away from the factory into a quieter zone where homes look newer, but unlived in. The lamps here burn bright but cold. Their bases are too clean. No handprints, no ivy, no life. You light them anyway out of duty, not fondness. One won't catch. You adjust the wick, the valve, the flow. Still nothing. You hum a tune under your breath. Your mentor's tune, and on the fifth strike, the flame answers. You step back, satisfied. You glance back at the factory. Smokestacks rise like fingers toward the sky. Some point, some accuse, some simply release. You walk on. The wind shifts again as you leave the factory zone, and with it comes the scent of something almost sweet, burnt sugar, and charred wood. It takes a moment to place it. Sakura ash. You pause at the edge of a small park, one of the few places the war and the quakes never fully erased. Cherry trees line the path, their petals mostly gone now, but traces still cling like pink confetti to branches and benches. You've always liked this place. The lamps here don't just light, they soften. You head for your favorite post, the one beside the Yushima shrine. It leans slightly westward as if bowing to the temple. You've polished its brass plaque so often you could shave by its reflection if you ever wanted to. You clean it again anyway. Old habits. The cloth moves in slow circles, and soon your face appears framed by clouded glass in time. You light it with a practiced hand. The flame grows quiet and respectful. Across the street, a group of children play hanetsuki, their wooden paddles clacking with each strike. One of them misses, and the shuttlecock flies toward you. You catch it mid-air, hand instinctively precise. You toss it back with a smirk. They cheer. Down the path, the air grows thick with memory. You recall a spring years ago when a fire swept through the district. The blossoms burned in sheets of pink flame. Ash floated through the air for days, covering the streets like snow. You lit every lamp that week, even those outside your route. People needed light, not for seeing, but for hope. One old woman gave you a rice ball wrapped in cherry leaf. You've never tasted anything like it since. You reach the next post mounted beside a wooden fence strung with prayer slips. Many are faded, but some are fresh. One reads, "Let him return home." Another simply says, "Forgive me." You light the lamp and whisper a third wish you'll never write down. Historians note the fires of 1876 as a catalyst for stricter urban planning, but they rarely mention how many of the new plans were drawn by lamplight. Your lamplight. You walk slowly through the park, the path curving like a poem written by footsteps. Each post you reach carries a different sound. Birdsong footsteps, laughter, silence. You light them all. One post stands near a wooden bridge, its base still blackened from the fire. You remember scrubbing at it days after the last ember died, trying to make it forget. It didn't. You light it now with extra care. A man sits on the bridge railing, playing a shakuhachi flute, the notes thin and breathy. You nod to him. He nods back between phrases. Music always respects rhythm. You cross the bridge and enter a residential street, where every house has a garden, no matter how small. A woman trims her azaleas and offers you tea from a distance. You raise your gourd in thanks. That's enough. The next lamp is tangled with hanging vines, heavy with summer green. You lift them gently, trim the wick, light the flame, then tuck the vines back around it like a blanket. From here, the path curves back toward the shrine. You pause to light an offering lantern, not your job, but you do it anyway. No one will notice, except the gods, maybe. The sun begins to sink now, the sky shifting from gold to amber. Shadows stretch. Lamps shine more clearly. You sit briefly on a bench carved with initials yours among them. You added it as a joke. No one's noticed. The last lamp in the park stands beneath a plum tree that never blossoms in sync with the others. It's early, or late, or stubborn. You admire that. You light the flame, sit back, and watch the glow settle like a blessing. Then you rise. There are more streets to walk. You make your way into the theater district where the lamps are bolder, brighter, and more prone to mischief. Their posts are painted, some lacquered in deep red, others inscribed with characters too old to read. This is not a quiet place. Even the shadows here perform. Outside the Kabuki playhouse, a crowd begins to gather. The marquee is hand-painted, still wet in places. A young actor rehearses a soliloquy near the entryway, his voice rising with the precision of a sword stroke. You light the lamp beside him. He nods without breaking character. You watch for a moment longer than necessary. This lamp always flares theatrically, perhaps from habit. Perhaps because it's fed on applause and smoke for so many years. You trim the wick with exaggerated care, an audience of passers-by pausing to watch. You bow slightly when the flame catches. They clap. You don't smile, but your stride quickens afterward. Down the street, you pass a sake stall where three men argue about a scene they've just witnessed. You hear snippets, too stiff, not enough fire. His voice cracks on every honor. They raise their cups to disagree more loudly. You light the lamp above them with no fanfare. It settles into its glow like a performer who knows he nailed his entrance. The next stretch of roadhouses, several back alley stages, small, often temporary. You remember lighting this area before a famous duel scene that went off script. The actors started fighting for real. The crowd thought it was genius. You spent the night relighting posts because no one left on time. One post leans suspiciously against a bamboo scaffolding. You stabilize it with your hip as you light it. The flame wavers, then flares like a curtain call. A child rushes past you with a wooden mask, fox-faced white with red lines. He giggles, vanishes down a side street. You wonder which play he escaped from. Historians still study the intersection of public lighting and performing arts, claiming it created the first-night economies. They rarely mention that actors once bribed lamplighters for extra brightness during key monologues. You light a lamp outside the costume warehouse. Someone's painted a face on the glass. You clean it, but not all the way. The nose makes you laugh. One stagehand stops you, asks for your opinion on an outfit, a samurai's robes too new to look real. You suggest rubbing it with charcoal, and he looks at you like you've just invented drama. You walk past the back door of the tea house, where off-duty performers smoke and trade insults. One throws a fan at another. It lands at your feet. You pick it up, hand it back with a bow. They cheer. The lamp over that doorway is delicate glass, thin as rice paper. You clean it like a relic. When it lights, it throws a circle of light that lands exactly where the actors always stand to exit. You wonder if they planned it that way, or if the lamp did. You move toward the final stage where a new troupe is rehearsing in open air. No walls, no curtain. Just a platform, 3 crates, and ambition. Their voices echo off the buildings. You light the 4 posts surrounding them. Each catches the flame like it's eager to witness something. You sit for a while, tools beside you as they practice. One stumbles on a line. Another sings instead of speaks. They bicker, bow, reset. The flame does not judge. Eventually, the director nods at you. You rise, sling the box back over your shoulder, and move on. You light a lamp at the edge of the district and glance back. The stage glows golden in the dusk, the actors still rehearsing. Maybe for a crowd, maybe just for the fire. You nod once to the nearest post and whisper, "Break a leg." Then you vanish into the wings of the street. As the sky begins to dim into that pale, pearly blue of evening, you find yourself standing outside the tea house on the corner, the one with the red paper lanterns, and the quiet rumors that flow thicker than the tea. You're not here for the gossip, not officially, but you do enjoy the tea. The Okami greets you with a glance, already placing a small dish of pickled ginger and a cup of hot liquid near the front lamp. Her sleeves are always perfectly folded, her eyes sharper than any blade. You don't say much. She doesn't expect you to. You light her lamp with steady hands. It burns a little brighter here, as if it's competing with the rumors inside. You sip your tea, lean your back against the warm post, and listen not with interest, but with the passivity of someone who has become furniture in this story. Snippets drift out through the sliding doors. Bribed the lamp commissioner, can you believe it? Saw him sneaking out before dawn barefoot. They say the electric poles are just spying tools. You smile into your tea. The truth is always stranger than fiction, but fiction is better company. The next lamp waits outside a sake shop, its glass fogged slightly from steam escaping the doorway. Inside, 3 clerks shuffle boxes while pretending not to drink. One of them sees you and calls out, "The bringer of light." You bow, exaggerated, and they laugh. You light the lamp. It gurgles before catching a trickle of leftover rainwater, probably. You wipe the base with your sleeve and move on. The street narrows again, and you pass an alley where a man plays shamisen for coins. You drop one. He nods mid-strum. You nod back. No words. At the corner where 3 streets meet, there's a lamp that was nearly replaced last year. New budget, new posts, sleek and ugly. But the neighbors protested, signed papers, held meetings, even staged a late-night poetry reading around the post. It stayed. You light it now with extra care. The wick trims easily. The flame curls into life like it never feared replacement. Historians still debate the role of lamplighters in civic engagement, but they forget that sometimes a single light holds a community together better than any official proclamation. Further down, a man selling grilled squid insists you take one. You try to refuse. He insists harder. You accept. It's spicy, crisped at the edges, still steaming. You eat it, leaning against another lamp, one you repaired yourself last winter. A child had snapped the valve trying to climb it. You spent an hour in the snow, fixing it with frozen fingers and quiet curses. You still see the scratch he left near the top. You didn't file it down. You reach a circle plaza where the wind always moves counterclockwise. No one knows why. Some blame the old sewer lines. Others say it's because the stones were laid on a cursed Tuesday. You light all 4 lamps around the circle, timing the strikes with the gusts. They flare in sequence like the corners of a spell being sealed. You sit again. You sip the last of your tea, lukewarm now. A newspaper page drifts past, caught in the breeze. The headline reads something about modernization. You crumple it with your foot. The next post is thin, delicate, an older model nearly retired. You trim the wick and whisper something your mentor used to say. Glow just enough to be missed. It does. A man carrying a briefcase watches you work. He asks, why not let machines do this? You smile. Machines forget the corners. He doesn't respond. Just walks on shoes, silent. The last lamp in the street stands near a signpost covered in flyers. Lost Cats calligraphy lessons, a strangely aggressive ad for cough syrup. You light the lamp, pause, and tack 1 flyer of your own. It's blank, but the light above it glows a little warmer than the others. The wind carries a faint scent of oil paint and seaweed as you approach the foreigner's quarter. A neighborhood both familiar and curious, where accents twist around syllables and roofs have chimneys instead of clay tiles. This part of the route always brings surprises. Today, it comes in the form of a man in a beige linen coat, sketchbook tucked under one arm, and a collapsible easel balanced on the other. He sees you before you can sidestep him. "Excuse me," he calls, voice clipped and bright. "You are the Lamplighter, yes." You nod. "I must draw you," he says, already unfolding the easel. "Do not move. You consider arguing, but your next lamp is right here, and besides, he's already begun." His strokes are fast and furious, more emotion than accuracy. "You see," he says, "your trade is disappearing, but it is beautiful, like a violinist on a sinking ship. You've been compared to many things. This is new. You trim the wick with exaggerated care." He gasps. "You strike the match," he murmurs, divine. The flame flares and he captures it mid-flicker with a jagged swipe of charcoal. He asks for your name. You offer your family name only. He scrawls it in the corner of the page. "I shall send this to the Queen," he announces. She adores realness. You nod and move on. You do not expect him to send it. He will likely forget before sunset. Still, it's a fine sketch. The next lamp is at the edge of a garden blooming with unfamiliar flowers. You don't know their names, but their colors are loud like opera singers at dawn. The flame here resists the match. You try again. This time it lights. You suspect the flowers had something to say about it. Further on, a baker with red hair and an apron covered in flour offers you a loaf. "Still warm," he says, "for your light." You take it. It smells of rosemary and sea salt. You eat a piece right there, hands still stained with soot. Best bread all day. You light the lamp outside his shop and wipe the soot with the corner of your sleeve. He watches, scribbles something on a notepad. Maybe a recipe. Maybe your name. You never ask. Historians still debate whether these foreigner interactions had lasting cultural impact. Some say they influenced modern gas lamp design. Others claim it was all anecdotal. You remember the painter and the bread, and that's enough. You reach a plaza with a statue. In the center, some dignitary whose name no one pronounces correctly. Pigeons perch on his head with ceremonial defiance. The 4 lamps here form a square. You light each one in order clockwise. The final flame flares so quickly it startles you. The pigeons scatter. You pretend it was intentional. A girl approaches and points to your toolbox. "What's in there?" she asks. "Memories," you reply. She frowns. "That's boring." You open it anyway. Show her the cloth, the pole, the matches. She pokes the snuffer with one finger, nods, then runs off. Maybe she'll remember. Maybe she won't. The last lamp in this quarter is mounted too high. You need to borrow a crate from a nearby flower vendor to reach it. She doesn't mind. She even wipes it down for you while you prep the wick. It lights without fuss. You thank the crate, return it, and keep walking. The sun dips lower now. Evening approaches like an old friend you forgot to write to. You think about the sketch, about the Queen, about the way stories travel farther than people sometimes. You reach into your coat, find the corner of the bread still warm, and eat the last bite beneath a post that hums slightly when lit. Then you smile and move on. As you round the corner into the university district, the lamps seem to burn with a different kind of fire, brighter, sharper, filled with a curious urgency that mirrors the voices echoing from open windows and lecture halls. Here, the streets are lined with signs printed in elegant brushstrokes. Announcements for philosophy talks, poetry readings, and student debates that begin with civility and end in thrown ink bottles. You light the first lamp outside a small cafe popular with the literature students. It smells of stale coffee and fresh arguments. Inside, two young men debate the morality of truth, neither noticing you trim the wick and coax the flame to life just beyond the glass. You walk on. In a narrow alley, a group of students huddle under a paper lantern whispering. They see you and fall silent. You nod, keep moving, and catch only a snippet. Tonight at the water tower, the next lamp flickers unusually. You open it, find nothing wrong, close it, and it burns steady. Still, the glass holds a smudge in the shape of a fingerprint. You wipe it away. Outside the newspaper office, stacks of fresh prints wait to be delivered. One headline catches your eye. Progress and protest. A city at crossroads. You light the lamp beside it and wonder which part of the crossroads you're on. Historians still debate the role of student movements in Meiji Tokyo. Some paint them as instigators, others as visionaries. You just light their streets and let them write their own truth. At the foot of the central library, someone has placed folded flyers beneath the lamps. You pick one up. It reads, "Gather. Listen. Change." You nod. Later, near the gates of the botanical garden, you find a small crowd. No torches, no yelling, just quiet presence. A circle of candles burns low at their feet. You step forward, open the nearest lamp, and light it with a whisper. They look at you, not in fear, not in awe, just in understanding. You say nothing. One student approaches, hands you a folded note. You don't open it. You tuck it inside your coat. The next few posts feel heavier. Not in weight, but in history not yet made. You light each with slow intention, as if the future depends on how evenly the flame catches. A boy sitting on the curb draws a lamppost with a pencil stub. He notices you and erases the base, redrawing it to include a plaque. You glance over. It says, "For those who showed the way." You walk away before he sees you smile. In the distance, drums begin soft, slow building. Not yet a march, not yet a roar, just the heartbeat of something waking. You reach the edge of the campus where the old dormitories sit. One of the lamps here is nearly covered in protest stickers. You leave them. You light it anyway. Flame flickers behind slogans. Resist. Rebuild. Remember. You sit for a moment on the steps of the dorm. Watch the shadows stretch. Listen to students murmur pens, scratch banners unfurl. You light the last lamp of the ward outside a wall covered in chalk poetry. One line stands out. "We don't need permission to glow." You tap the pole once with your knuckles. It glows. Then you walk into the gathering dark coat, a little heavier, heart a little lighter. You enter a district stitched together with silence and shadow, the kind that deepens as dusk folds in around rooftops. This is the far edge of your route, less frequented, less polished, but still yours. The first lamp is tall and tired, its post groaning slightly when you rest your hand against it. You climb slowly, every joint muttering its complaints. At the top, the view stretches rows of lights. You've already kindled tiny flames, strung like beads across the city's spine. You trim the wick light, the flame, and whisper to no one. Almost done. The wind answers with a chill. You descend and pass a butcher's shop closed now. The windows are steamed from inside, even in the evening. A small cat watches you from the eaves, its eyes reflecting the lamplight like polished coin. You pause at the next post. It stands beside an old barber shop, the kind that hasn't changed its signage since before you were born. You remember your mentor getting his hair cut here, laughing with a mouthful of rice cracker? You light the lamp and think about how much of your route is memory layered over utility. At the base of the next post, someone has carved initials 2 kanji joined by a heart. You clean around it, but leave the carving untouched. Further up the lane, a narrow flight of stairs leads to your next lamp. This one is difficult, not just high, but precarious. You climb anyway, gripping the iron tighter than usual. Each step echoes in the hollow post. At the top, the wind picks up again, stronger this time. The match nearly dies twice before catching. The flame burns low and fierce like a secret. From here, the rooftops look like scales shimmering with reflected fire. It's beautiful. It's temporary. You climb down and continue toward the final stretch. Here, the road narrows until it's more path than street. Trees lean in branches, whispering over old walls. You pass the stone bench where someone once carved a haiku. A lamp in winter burns with no one watching it. Still, it warms the dusk. You sit for a breath beside it, hand on the next lamp. This one always hesitates. You coax it like an old friend, thumb smoothing the ridges in the metal. It catches. On the second try. Historians rarely note which lamps burn best, which fail first, which ones feel like companions. You know, you've known for years. The second to last lamp is crooked now. Earth shifted beneath it during last year's tremor. You lit it then, too, even as the ground moved. It burned steady through the aftershock. You place your hand on its base before you light it, an apology for what comes next. Because now comes the final post of the day. It stands alone at the far edge of the riverbank, just before the footpath disappears into marsh reeds. There's no house nearby, no shop, no shrine. Still, it waits for you. You cross the footbridge slowly, your boots thudding against damp wood. The lamp looms ahead, not tall, but solitary. You've never asked why it's here. You've never needed to. You open the box, take out the last match. The wind stills. You strike. The lamp flares, then settles into its familiar golden glow. You watch it a while, then you sit. Your box rests at your side. Your knees ache. The city hums behind you, faint content. One by one, the lamps you've lit tonight will burn through their oil. Some will flicker in the early hours. Some will last until dawn. But this one, this last one, will hold. Because you lit it. Because you came all this way. The river glimmers faintly under the last lamp you lit, like a silk ribbon catching its breath. You rise from the bench and stretch slow and deliberate, letting your spine unwind one vertebra at a time. Your body protests, but your body always protests. You listen politely, then move on. You follow a winding lane that curves gently uphill, lined with houses now settling into sleep. Paper windows glow softly from within, silhouettes of dinners and lullabies playing out behind them. You tread carefully here. This is home. At the gate of your small courtyard, you pause. The box still hangs from your shoulder, heavier now that the work is done. You push the gate open, its hinge squeaking like an old friend clearing its throat. The walkway is lined with flat stones you placed yourself one each year since you began this job. You count them as you step 14. The 15th is ready by the door, still waiting for the right moment to settle into place. Inside, the air smells of oil and dried herbs. Your wife is asleep already. Futon slightly rumpled, her hair spilling across the pillow like ink on rice paper. She snores gently, rhythmically. You remove your boots at the threshold, tow them into place, then set your box down with care. The click of its latch echoes in the quiet room. You move to the stove light, the burner with your last dry match, and set a kettle to boil. As the water warms, you peel off your robe layer by layer, hanging it on its nail, patting dry the sweat from your neck with your towel. The one with the frayed edge. The lucky one. Your knees pop as you sit. You roll your shoulders. Your fingers itch from soot. You open the box one more time, not out of necessity, but out of ritual. You clean the trimmer wipe, the hook fold, the cloth, inspect the snuffer, everything in its place, everything accounted for. The kettle whistles low. You pour the water into a shallow tub tucked beside the hearth and ease your feet into it. The warmth spreads up your legs like forgiveness. Historians sometimes wonder what lamplighters did when they came home. Most records focus on routes, wages, equipment. Few mention the quiet moments, the flickering comfort, the way your own lamp burns just above your front step lit before you ever cross the threshold. Yours still glows now through the shoji screen, a soft halo cast against the paper wall. A reminder, a companion, a sentinel. You sip barley tea still hot. You chew a piece of dried plum from the Okami-san's dish left earlier in your satchel. It's sharp but sweet at the end. Tomorrow you'll do it all again. You'll rise before the sun. You'll check the box. You'll step into the silence before the world remembers itself. But tonight you soak. You let your body float in the warm hum of a job well done. You let your mind drift to flames that caught children who waved streets that whispered your name in cracked pavement. The door creaks. Your wife stirs. You murmur something she doesn't quite catch. She murmurs back, eyes closed, voice like soft cotton. You finish your tea, pour out the water, dry your feet with the towel that has followed you through seasons. Outside, the city exhales, and in your own little home for the first time all day, you don't need to light anything. You simply close your eyes. Your dreams arrive slowly, as if walking barefoot through the garden. They carry the scent of lamp oil and barley, of rain-damp sandals and warm brass. You drift through memory, not as a visitor, but as a caretaker moving from one flickering light to the next, adjusting, polishing, protecting. The city unfolds around you. Lamps bloom across the skyline like fireflies synchronized to your breath. Streets you've never walked, yet somehow know by heart, stretch into the distance, glowing at your approach. Shadows step aside. Time folds its arms and nods respectfully. You find yourself back at the river's edge. The post waits there just as you left it, standing in silence beneath the weight of the stars. You reach out, not to light it, but simply to rest your hand upon it. And when you do, the entire city seems to glow a little brighter, wind down. Now let's slow everything down. You're no longer walking, you're floating. The streets are quiet, their stones softened by evening mist. The lamps burn, not with urgency, but with contentment, casting golden halos that flicker like sleepy eyelids. The hum of the city recedes into a gentle hush. No voices, no wheels. Just the whisper of flame and the occasional creak of wood remembering footsteps. Each breath you take draws in warmth. Each exhale releases the weight of the day. The snuffer pole is at rest. The trimming hook lies still. And your box, faithful, worn beloved, sits closed, its contents peaceful, its purpose fulfilled. The tea has cooled. The towel dries slowly on its hook. And outside your door, the lamp you lit, with your very first match, still glows, holding the dark at bay with quiet dignity. Let yourself lean into that softness. Let your thoughts dim like distant lights behind fogged glass. Let the pulse of your day slow to a single, steady flicker. There is no more to carry. The flame holds steady, and now the streets can dream too.